After another moment of madness by Marinakis at Nottingham Forest, today we're going to look how Forest could line up under new manager Vitor Pereira. Welcome to Talking Forest. Yes, welcome to Talking Forest, the first video on the channel, proper video anyway. Wish it were better circumstances and stuff like this, but it is what it is. We're on to our fourth manager of the season, Vitor Pereira, after Sean Dyche was sacked after Wednesday night's draw at home to Wolves. And it's not been a great season at all for Forest. European football, the fans was high. Anything could have happened. Then he sacked Nuno at the start of the season. Just things gone on behind the scenes, people know. Ange come in, disaster, 8 games in. Dyche probably would have been the man to be bringing in now, but he brought him in October. Don't get it. Turns out he wasn't doing the best, so now Marinakis has got rid of him. And we're on to Vitor Pereira. Over his last couple of jobs, and especially at Wolves, he's adapted a 3-4-3, kind of 3-4-2-1 formation. And I really think that could suit Forest's current squad. Now, I said it when I first ever laid eyes on Murillo. He's only, 5'11", bordering 6 foot, not massive for a centre-half, but he's obviously his pace, his power helps him in a lot of his duels and everything like that. Now, I've always said that Murillo would suit a back three because of his height. Milenkovic, 6'5", quite a bit of a slower centre half. He will be the perfect man to sit in the middle of a back three. Murillo on the left, which then talks about the right hand side. And a lot of people would say play Morato and shift the whole defence across. Don't think Milenkovic can play on the wide right formation, wide right of a back three. And Morato's been very, very poor over recent weeks. So I think he's got to introduce Jair Cunha. Now, Jair Cunha signed from Botafogo in the summer, and he stands at 6 feet 6 inches tall. Young centre-half, only 20 years old. Not much experience, but he's got some talent. He's got some promise. He's got a big future in the game if he wants it. And I'm really thinking a back three with Murillo, Milenkovic and Jair Cunha, there could be something. Now, the most important positions in a three-back formation with 3 centre-half is the 2 full-backs, that being Nico Williams and Ola Aina. Now, everyone remembers how good they were last season. There was arguably a couple of the best fullbacks in the league total last season. It doesn't matter, I've gone to all the stats. Watching them with your own eyes, it doesn't matter, they was impeccable last season. But early on in the season, Ola Aina picked up a hamstring injury while away with Nigeria, which ruled him out for the first half of the season. And he's only really been back since the start of January, and he still doesn't look fit. But he is still an upgrade on Nicolas Savona. Nico Williams, apart from Elliot Anderson, has probably been our best player this season, so he pretty much sticks at left back, left wing back. Ola Aina down the right hand side. And if Vitor Pereira can get what Nuno got out of them in this formation, then we could be flying. Now, when they bomb up the pitch and basically act as a left winger and a right winger with the ball, whenever we lose the ball, you shouldn't be worried that much because you're not just leaving 2 centre-halves, you're leaving 3. And Sangare would sit with the centre-half. So when we get countered upon, when Nico Williams and Ola Aina are out of position, Sangare would drop in and you basically create a back 4 again. And obviously Sangare sitting and holding that midfield, dropping into defence when he needs to, would allow Anderson to go and push up and play with Aina, Williams, Gibbs-White, Jesus, whoever the front men are. It allows Anderson to go forward and create an extra man in there. Now, whether he goes for 3 straight attackers or floating wingers, I call them floating 10s. I think one guarantee Gibbs-White's going to be in there. He's pretty much a star player. Everyone knows this. Even when he plays bad, he's still going to play. It's just one of them things. So Gibbs-White is in there, but it's who he picks on the other side. He could play Gibbs-White on the right and have Hudson-Odoi on the left. Or Gibbs-White could predominantly play on the left and have Bakwa, McAtee, Hutchinson, any one of them players on the right-hand side. But especially with players like Hutchinson and James McAtee, who have got the technical ability, it helps Anderson and Sangare when they're getting overloaded, because there are only 2 men in midfield, remember. When they're getting overloaded with a 3-man midfield, Gibbs-White can drop in, make it 3, but we can also pull McAtee, Hutchinson, whoever that other winger floating 10 is, in and create a 4-man midfield. But then it's the attacking prospect. They would have to get out of that midfield quickly, which I believe they can do. We've shown us last season what they can do in counter-attacking and things like this. They can get forward very quickly, which would then help Igor Jesus. Now, one of the biggest problems under Sean Dyche was that we wasn't scoring enough goals. We wasn't creating mass chances either, but we really miss a man who just puts the ball in the back of the net like Chris Wood did last season. Now, Igor Jesus has done well in other competitions, Europa League and the Carabao Cup, but he's very rarely hit in the Premier League. And I'm not putting all that down to him, by the way. That's just the way Sean Dyche played. He went long to Igor Jesus, who got a really, really good hold-up game, by the way. He really bullies defenders when he can do. But when he brings that ball down, you need someone 10, 15 yards away from him. Instead, they're 30, 40 yards away from him. The gaps between our midfield and Igor Jesus was way too big. And I'm really hoping that a free at the back would allow us to push a bit higher. Like I said, Sangare would sit, Anderson would go. Then you could allow Gibbs White, the extra winger, Aina, Nico Williams to all get a lot closer to Igor Jesus when he brings that ball down. And when he does that, then he can allow himself to quickly pass it off and get into the box, into goal-scoring positions. Now, I think Vitor Pereira's first main job to come in for, I know he's only got 12 games in the Premier League to do it, and it's not a long time. But what he needs to do instantly is instill confidence back in them players, because Sean Dyche absolutely ripped it out of them. And everybody knows who's got a footballing brain. When players are confident and happy, they just play better. They play better, the fans are happier, there's more of a connection, which hasn't been there in recent weeks. And just for an example of Dyche ripping the confidence out of players, look at Delane Bakwa. Really, 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 really good in Liga last season for Strasbourg. Forest going to sign him for 35 million quid. Big expectations, I get it. Comes in, he's still only young, not hit the ground running whatsoever. A lot of fans think he's rubbish, think he's crap, not worth the time. But the thing is, Dyche just completely ripped him at every opportunity he got. Wrexham in the FA Cup, he started him on the left-hand side, which he's not a left winger, he's a right winger. Started him on the left-hand side, then took him off in the second half, and then after the game, didn't specifically speak about him, but he said he don't want anyone knocking on his door, which you can imagine Delane Bakwa would have been knocking on his door wanting his opportunity. And he also brought him on in the West Ham game when we won 2-1 away from home. And then because we went 2-1 up, right at the end, right 89th minute, something like that, he brings him off. Why? Do you really think that's good for his confidence? Come on in the second half, right at the start, and by the end of the second half, he took off again. He could have brought any of those attackers off, but he chose to take Delane Bakwa off. It's just no good for his confidence, and he's done that with a lot of players, by the way. And the main reason that helps Vitor Pereira is Portuguese speaking. We've got a lot of Brazilians in our squad that would have found it hard to communicate with Dyche, Stone, Wone, his coaching team. Vitor Pereira comes in and that kind of totally goes out the window. Fluent Portuguese. They'll see it as a match made in heaven. Someone they can connect with, talk to about the game, just life in general. So it's really good for our Brazilians, and obviously he's not bad with his English either, so the English lads will understand him as well. Now, obviously his main job is to keep Forest in the Premier League. We've been away for a long, long time. And just 3 or 4 years after being back, Marinakis don't want to see us drop down and go back to the Championship, especially after last season as well. But that's not his only target, I don't believe. Marinakis truly believes Forest can go on and win the Europa League this season. Now, whether you believe that, I believe that, I don't know. But Marinakis believes Forest can win it. So I think Vitor Pereira will have to keep Forest in the league and probably get minimum semi-finals in the Europa League. Now, I'm only talking about how Forest could line up and how Vitor Pereira could do things. But we've got Dave from Talking Wolves who's going to give us an insight into his time at Wolves, Vitor Pereira's, and just how things could differ in the coming weeks for Forest.
Hi guys, this is Dave from Talking Wolves giving my thoughts and opinion on Vitor Pereira and his imminent appointment at Nottingham Forest. Of course, as a Wolves fan, I've sort of witnessed Vitor Pereira and his style of football in the flesh. A little lowdown of sort of what happened, his appointment, the rise and I suppose the downfall of Pereira at Wolverhampton Wanderers as well. He came in just over 12 months ago actually, about 14 months ago after Gary O'Neill, who had joined Wolves after quite a turbulent time. Julian Lopetegui had left the club, and Gary O'Neill pretty much joining the club on the eve of a new season. And almost throughout that first season under Gary O'Neill, there was like this siege underdog mentality where things just kept going against us and Wolves would battle through, and had a really productive first season under Gary O'Neill. He was unfortunate with injuries towards the end of his tenure, but lost a lot of form and just couldn't regain and refine that form at the start of the 24-25 season. And ultimately, a lot of fans getting frustrated. Wolves were sat in the bottom three. and Gary O'Neill probably outstayed his welcome at Wolves. And at the time, there wasn't a huge amount of managers who wanted the job, but Wolves acted quickly, got Vitor Pereira in, who left his job at Al Shabab in Saudi Arabia at the time, and he came and it was almost an instant impact from him. His first game was on the road away at Leicester City. We beat them comfortably. Of course, Leicester were one of the main strugglers last season. We then went to Molineux and beat Manchester United, and then backed it up with a draw away at Spurs as well. So it was a really successful opening period for Vitor Pereira. Things calmed down a little bit throughout January, February, but he then went on to claim 6 wins on the bounce. Now, in terms of the calibre of opposition, there were probably teams that Wolves should have been competing and possibly on a good day would have been beaten anyway. But the fact is, it's not many teams can boast the fact that they've won 6 games on the bounce, and that ultimately was a huge catalyst of taking Wolves far away from that drop zone and keeping Wolves in the Premier League. You would have seen maybe the pictures and videos of Vitor Pereira celebrating with fans. We were winning football matches. Fans would be at a pub on a bank holiday Sunday evening, 10, 11 p.m, and he would rock up in the local Wetherspoons, which was just incredible. I remember that after a win against Manchester United at Old Trafford. And then things started to just go a little bit pear-shaped. After that 6 wins on the bounce, I think we lost to City at the Etihad, and form just slowed down a little bit at the end of last season. We finished with a 1-1 draw against Brentford. And then we went into pre-season, and he was putting pressure on the board really early on about recruitment. Now, we lost Matheus Cunha, we lost Nelson Semedo, who was our captain, we lost Ryan Aït-Nouri quite early on in the window. Wolves then went on to remove Matt Hobbs, who was our sporting director at the time, for a guy called Domenico Tetti, who was a friend and a former colleague of Vitor Pereira. And that's really a sticking point and a turning point, I think, for Vitor Pereira and his time at Wolves. Wolves, because they liked what Vitor Pereira did and obviously promised something if he stayed up, ended up giving him a lot more control in regards to recruitment. That completely backfired. You can see the calibre of the Wolves squad this season, completely wrong. And yeah, Wolves fans just aren't too happy with how that all turned out in the end, and he lost the fans quite quickly. We'd lost the first 4 games, I think, of the season, and he got given a new contract. Then the form just continued to go, really. There was just no coming back from it. We drew 1-1 away at Spurs. Scoring from the last kick of the game. The following game against Brighton was probably one of our better performances and the most control we've had in a performance, and Vitor Pereira decided at 1-0 up we'd go really defensive, and we ended up drawing that game. And that was another sliding doors moment, I think, for Vitor, because if Wolves held on and won that game, there's every chance we wouldn't be having this conversation and he could still be Wolves manager, because that would have been a huge boost for Wolves at the time. But he lost the players, he lost the fans. He dropped Andre and João Gomez, both of them, for a particular game away at Fulham, which we were awful in, and that was goodbye for Vitor Pereira. And of course, you look at the league table, things haven't gone much better for Wolves, but I certainly think we would have been in a bad way, in a bad position, if Vitor Pereira stayed on in charge of Wolves. But I think that recruitment side of things is the biggest thing for me. I think as a instant impact manager, Nottingham Forest may have somebody that can do the job for them and keep them in the Premier League. I think you've got the structure there in regards to Mr. Marinakis with Edu. That recruitment, he's not going to have a lot of control of that recruitment, so I think that'll be okay. And I think we saw the best football under Vitor Pereira in this sort of 3-4-3 sort of style. A style that I'd be very interested to see if he can replicate at Forest. I think you've got the players. I think you've got the pacey wing-backs, the quality wing-backs to do so. You've got the likes of Anderson, who could hold the midfield well. The likes of Elanga. Not Elanga, he's gone, hasn't he? Hudson-Odoi and Morgan Gibbs-White, who can fill that sort of creative Matheus Cunha type role as well. And he managed to get the best out of Jürgen Strand-Larsen as well, with putting quality and a lot of physicality, which I think you've got in Sangare as well, which Vitor Pereira really likes. And it'd be very interesting if he stays on and keeps you up going into the summer, what sort of profile of player he goes for, because he went for this real physical 6-foot+ type of player, and for whatever reason it didn't work at Wolves. So I'll be interested. I don't think Wolves fans hold him in such high regard at the moment, but Wolves was a toxic place and probably still is a toxic place to work right now. So he was let go, and it will be very interesting him back in the Premier League to see what he'll do in a brand new environment.
But thank you for that, Dave. Incredible insight into Vitor Pereira's time at Wolves. If you want to, go over to his channel. It's Talking Wolves. I'll pop it in the description down below. Go and check his content out, subscribe, like his videos, all of that good stuff. But that brings us to the end of the video. I want you guys to let me know in the comments down below how you think Vitor Pereira will line up. What's your thoughts on Sean Dyche being sacked, Vitor Pereira coming in, and just a general an idea of what you think we could look like in the next 12 Premier League games to help us survive. But that's going to do it for the end of the video. Thank you guys for watching so much. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel for more content like this going forward, matchday vlogs, previews, reviews, anything big happening like this, new managers, new transfers, anything like that, big news, then subscribe for future videos. Thank you.